Elizabeth Hope Derby, thanks so much for joining the We Rise podcast. So excited to have you today. Will you introduce yourself so folks know who I have the joy of speaking to today, please?
Absolutely. I'm so glad to be here. So, my name's Elizabeth, as you just shared. I'm a business and mindset coach based in Charlottesville, Virginia, just like you.
Yay,
Yay!
Charlottesville.
I know. And I partner with women entrepreneurs, helping them create more sustainable, profitable, and enjoyable businesses. And a lot of that work really starts on the inside and then in partnership with our communities. And so I'm just jazzed to talk about whatever we get into today. I feel like this is such fruitful conversation for everyone, regardless of what passion we may be pursuing or what we do with our work in the world. And I guess the last thing I'll add is I'm very, very committed and passionate about the idea of women in particular, but people in general, pursuing the things that they believe they are meant to do in their careers and in their creative pursuits with courage and conviction and confidence. Because I actually think the work that calls to us is work that will serve the world. That pursuit of what feels like personal pleasure and flow and fulfillment is actually in tremendous service to the world around us. And I happen to love working with entrepreneurs because they've made that commitment and that leap. And it's just very easy to kind of lose sight of the value of living in that sense of purposefulness and joy. So anyway, that's me.
I love that. So you started, Elizabeth, by saying you work primarily with women entrepreneurs, helping to grow this sense of joy and profitability. And I think you said sustainability as well, but then you just wove it around so beautifully to that sense of purpose. Can you talk a little bit about how you work with entrepreneurs and with women in finding that sense of purpose or rekindling that sense of purpose? Because as you well know, many of us start out on this journey of, interest and explosion and growth, and then the grind of what it takes to run a business also can come into play. So how do you help folks stay connected to that spark, or if they're not sure where they want to go and what that spark is, to connect to it and find it? What does that look like?
Oh my gosh. Yes, I love this question. I love this question because it is so true. I have worked with so many clients who have expressed just this thing, especially if you've been in business for a while. I also think you could be just toying with the idea of business for a while and feel very, I don't want to say beaten down, but you can feel like you've lost touch with potential or hope or the belief that things could be different. And it's a slippery slope when we're working really hard to, it starts off always with wanting to do good work in the world and be of service. So, I mean, the women that I connect with and who I'm sure anyone who listens to your podcast, I'm sure is of this persuasion that, you've got a big heart, you've got a heart of service, you want to make a positive impact in the world, and you want to get paid, and you want to have a functional lifestyle, and you want to enjoy being alive, and you want to use money to give back to your communities, and you want to prosper in a way that's prosperous for everyone.
Right.
But that has to start with personal prosperity. Like you have to take responsibility for that. Yeah. And a lot of us, I think, have learned, potentially been indoctrinated, not through like a maliciousness, evil force in the world, but just through the way our culture works. We have been taught to narrow our focus on serving. It's two sides of the same coin. It's sort of serving to the point of utter exhaustion, giving everything away because we believe that will make us good enough, which is actually coming from a place of scarcity that says like, you are no better than a cog in a machine, so just keep running until you wear out.
Totally.
There's kind of that side of the coin of burnout in an effort to be of service and kind of earn your keep or earn money. And then there's the other piece of it, which is sort of this panic that comes from, well, what if I can't earn money? So I'm not focused on service. I'm focused on what do I need to cling to or grasp closer to me so that I don't lose what I've got.
Right.
And neither one of those is bad. I feel like they're both like totally normal responses to this idea that we are a victim of circumstances, living in scarcity, and we're all out to get each other, and competition is fierce, and business is hard, and like all of these narratives, right, that we're taught, that we just walk into. And then we're like, why do I feel so bad all of the time? And the reason we feel bad all the time is just swimming in this constant scarcity mindset that we're not even aware of. And often I'm working with folks who've been in business for a while. They are service providers. And so they've built a successful company on the effort of literally their service. Like they are selling something that serves a group of people or a particular one client at a time. And it can feel impossible to extricate that over giving and sort of victimish, like, and again, I don't use that word with any judgment because I relate to it. I think we all relate to it, of like, when will the winds of mercy like fall on me so that I can receive what I'm giving out into the world? And I think women in particular are taught to do that. So anyway, I am going on a big rant there to say there's a certain amount of unlearning and mindset work that comes in to say, okay, wait, what if none of that was true?
Right.
What if I could take up more space? What if I could take more time for myself in my work? What if I could bring more of my own pleasure and purpose and the things I want into my concept and the way I conceptualize how I run this company, how I run my life. I always start with people by looking at where do you want to go, and not just where do you want the business to go, although that's important, but what do you want your life to look like? How do you want to feel? Because so often we're the engine of our business. And if we don't have the fuel, if we don't have the resourcing internally, externally, not only do we feel terrible because we burn out, but we can't sustain our businesses, and that feels really bad too. So honestly, rekindling that spark and that joy begins by just giving someone permission to breathe and to take up space and to feel like, wait a second, maybe the chaos that I've been trying so hard to like hold back with my constant efforting isn't actually there. Maybe it's something that I could let go of trying to control for a minute. Maybe it's something I could stop taking responsibility for a minute and just be with myself, in my body, in this room, and remember what I love, or even just attend to how I want to feel. That's like a very grounded, practical first step. It's like, I always recommend we just take a breath and get into our bodies. And, that, and I mean, that's not all of it. There's more in terms of slowing down the process. Like the other thing that I think is important just to mention is we often sell ourselves short because of our conditioning, because of a million reasons. Sometimes we just can't see the label from inside the jar. And when we have like a limited view of the value and the impact that we have, both as service providers, but then also as business creators and job creators and like mission leaders in a world, right? Like we bring so much more to the table. First of all, I have a background in copywriting and brand strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm often aware of all of these layers of market value that
Mm-hmm.
people bring to the table, and individuals in particular bring, that they're not aware of, and that they're, services like what we do, we think, okay, well, we help people do this one thing. There's typically a significant ripple effect that we haven't taken into consideration.
Mm-hmm.
So slowing that down and really allowing ourselves to witness the fullness of the change, the positive change that we make, not just in the thing we sell, but in our bigger impact. And then, in the thing we sell too. It can provide this sense of reclamation and coming back home to the wholeness of what we've been pouring our hearts into.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've been working so hard, and like, it's just never enough. And like, when you're in that position to slow down and say, what if it was more than enough? And can we find some evidence for that actually you've been thinking you do this one little thing, but in reality, what you create in the world is so much bigger than that. It provides some evidence to help detox that voice of scarcity in our minds. And again, I think returns us to this wholeness from which we can feel joy, and we can feel a sense of power, and like, wow, wait a second, I've been doing amazing things this whole time. I don't even give myself credit for that.
Totally, totally.
And like, so I could go on and on, but
I love that. So much goodness there. Can you talk a little bit, Elizabeth, in your work with yourself or with clients or, groups of folks about two things? There's the mindset, and there's so much there around mindset and how we shift mindsets, but then also the heart space, and you talked a lot about just coming back to the body and the sense of joy and the taking a breath. I love that. I guess two strands of conversation I'm curious about. One is, how do people start to shift their mindset when they're really stuck in a mindset that's not serving them, and then connect to their heart space? And how do those things start to kind of weave together, if that makes sense?
Totally. That's a really cool question. I think that we're all very holistic beings. I'm one of those people that firmly believes everything is interconnected. And so a shift in your thoughts can serve a shift in your heart, and a shift in your heart can serve a shift in your thoughts. And, going for a walk in the woods can replenish your strategic creativity. And like, there's no, you can do one thing and it will impact every area. And I think it's useful to remember that there are some key kind of pistons in the engine that you want firing. So it is important to be both attending to your mind and attending to your heart. And I would say attending to your body and attending to your spirit as well. Like, I really feel, and that's just you. And there's also everything around you, right? Like, I see these many orbits that we operate in. But mindset, you asked, how do you begin to sort of excavate yourself from a mindset that isn't serving? For me personally, as someone who has a tendency to, like, I work with women, right? Because I understand, like, I've been there, and I learned the tools because I needed the tools, and because I wanted my clients to have the tools. And so I'll say, for me, as someone who has more often than not felt like a fraud or an imposter in the pursuit of the things that I have truly wanted to achieve in the world. There has been one practice in particular that's been really helpful. And I say that because if anybody who is listening or watching knows that feeling, I also just want to boop, boop, and normalize that, because the imposter thing happens whenever we're starting something new. And we have really high standards that are probably unfair because we're not allowing ourselves to be beginners. And we're dismissing all we've already done in the direction of our dreams. So it's like, we're not actually frauds. We're not actually these big liars that are about to be found out by the world of like how terrible we are and how out of integrity we are. Like, no, that's not it. But if you are of that, like, I'm a high achiever, I'm always over delivering, I'm super high integrity, I never want to be like out of sync or out of step or out of, this is kind of my highest success at all times, like, yowza, like you probably are at some point being real hard on yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a mindset thing. And of course it can also, and I mean, I want to be clear, like mindset is not something that, it's something you can take responsibility for. It's something you have agency over. It is not something that is your fault. It's not like, oh, I come from, we live in a lot of oppressive systems and we suffer trauma. And there are a lot of things that impact. And then there's just the cultural water we swim in. Like a lot of things impact our mindset. So it's not to shame. We also shouldn't shame ourselves because this is a tendency I've had and I see in clients too. We're like, oh, I feel like a fraud. Oh, how come I'm telling myself I shouldn't want to try so hard? There's like this layer of like shaming the awareness that you're, so like, let's not do that either. Let's just acknowledge we're human, doing scary things. Our brain wants to protect us. And the way that you can start to unwind from a mindset when you don't even know if you're, a lot of times you don't even know you're being really hard on yourself. So one way I've found is pretty effective is if you just feel kind of sick and you can't put your finger on why, but you go to do something professionally or you've done something professionally and you just feel like, oh, like, why do I feel so bad? I'm willing to bet you have a self-critical mindset, that your inner critic is talking some trash to you in that moment about your not enoughness. And it's slippery because it's in your own head, so you believe it automatically. But if you can start to recognize that like either embodied sensation or that heart sensation of like, ooh, like I really don't feel like, why do I feel so bad? That's often honestly what people say when I first meet. They're like, I don't understand why running this business is so hard. Like, I don't even know what's wrong. And I'm like, yeah, that's fair because you can't see the water you're swimming in sometimes, right? So how do you identify it when you're swimming in it? If you feel really bad about yourself, hit pause and just check in and say, what is my inner critic talking right now? And you may think, oh, but my inner critic's got a point because you're also a perfectionist and whatever. Like, you're like, no, but I was terrible that I did that thing. And what if we just, check that tendency and say, our inner critics are trying to keep us safe. If it's not something you would say to a loved one, it's not something you should be saying to yourself. Totally. Even if it's there is such a thing as constructive criticism. If you are deep in the inner critic talk and feeling sick about yourself, I guarantee that criticism is not constructive. You actually need to start with some self-care, some self-love, some like self-acceptance in a really deep way. And then you can get to the part where your brain is like, has enough foundational stability to say, okay, and what did I want to learn from this? But you don't jump straight into the learning when you feel bad about yourself because it doesn't work. Like, that's how this cycle sort of perpetuates itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So well said. And then there also seems like the witness self, who's watching that part of you, the inner critic, and it's multi-layered and complicated and often happens, that growth often happens with the help of others. So I'd love to hear a little bit more, Elizabeth, about your story and how you got to this point of doing what you're doing. Can you tell us a little bit more about your story and about, just how you're engaged with community?
Totally. So I love that you dedicate this work to community because Um, I think my willingness to ask for help, to be embraced by community, and not in a performative way, and not necessarily in a um, like help me, I'm so wrecked kind of way, but just to really show up in the vulnerability of both my my strength and my weakness, to
Mhm.
bring both of those
Yeah.
to community witnessing and conversation and support, um, is the thing. I mean, that is the reason I have had resilience. It's the reason I'm still walking a creative path that I've carved for myself. It's
Mhm.
the reason that, I mean, to say nothing of all the obvious, like you can't succeed, like no one succeeds in
Right.
business without connection to their
Right.
community, with the
Right.
support of so many people. Um, and that's just business. It's true in family. It's true in friendship. Like, right, like connections and community are what make the world go around.
Yeah.
For me personally, um, so my story, the way I tell it, comes from this perspective of wanting to pursue what I felt was my professional calling, and all of the fear I had around that. Um, it's been like these waves over the years, and it was when I began really hooking into community that it made a tremendous difference for me. So I'll go back quickly to talk about the fact that when I was in high school, I was in a creative writing program,
Mhm.
at a performing arts high school. So I did a lot of writing.
Mhm.
And I had come from a family that was artists
Mhm.
and business like titans. Like my
Mhm.
dad was like a Wall Street executive, and
Mhm.
my mom was a jewelry designer.
Uh-huh.
And that sort of dynamic is true across my lineage. And
Mhm.
so for me, I really identified with the artsy side of life, right? Like I was like,
Right.
I'm very creative. Like I'm an artist and I'm a writer, and
Yeah.
here we are. And I felt from the time I was in high school this desire to prove that I could succeed professionally in a
Mhm.
creative capacity.
Mhm.
And I also received a lot of messages about how that was not possible,
Mm.
um,
Mhm.
or how, like, that's fun that you want to be a writer. And how about you
This other thing.
enjoy, like, how about you enjoy being a waitress when you graduate,
Mhm.
kind of thing, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And, or like, it's so cute that you want to be a teacher and nothing else. And like, by the way, like, I think teachers have one of the hardest jobs on the planet. So I'm not exactly
Mhm.
sure how
Mhm. Right.
that's like a trade down or something. But I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of like, if you want to have a, if you want to have a good salary, if you want to be, um, a true force in an economy, like have fun making your little art, but like that's not what this
Mm.
is. And that's not how you play this game. And I mean, I don't know that everyone had this experience. This was just the lens that I was looking through as I grew
Right.
up. So I graduated from college and was doing all these writing projects on the side. Um, I had a blog and I was publishing in some places, but I just wanted a sal. Like I just wanted a job. I was like, I just want a corporate job so that I can
Mhm.
say I did it and prove,
Right.
haha, look, the
Right.
girl with the creative, like smarts got this great job. And I did get a
Mhm.
great job and it was
Mhm.
fantastic. I worked in marketing for a fragrance house,
Okay.
um, which was really actually very creative.
Mhm.
And we did a lot of brand development, a lot of sort of trend forecasting, and like what are consumers going to care about and how do we weave that into our work. And then um, eventually I decided that I needed to leave because I was very comfortable,
Mhm.
but I knew I was not fully owning that calling that I had, which
Mm.
truthfully, in my heart of hearts, was to start a business because my mom had a business, and I was like, I want to have a business, but like, I want to be really successful. And but I was so scared that when I quit my job, I didn't even tell people I wanted to start a business. I just said, well, I'm going to go write a book because everybody knew I was a writer, and they
Right.
were like, okay. I was like, yeah, I'm going to go write a book and then I'm going to like figure things out. But I'm in my 20s. I don't have kids or a house. Like I
Right.
have the freedom to do this now.
Mhm.
Don't give me another promotion. If you give me another promotion, the money will be too good and I'll never leave. That was really my like trigger moment. And
Right.
I was up in New Jersey, which is where I'm from, and I was dating someone who lived in Charlottesville,
Uh-huh.
and one of us was going to move. And I was like, you know what? I know that it would make more sense for you to come to me because I've got this great job and this great apartment and like all this stuff. How about not? And I come to you so that I'm forced out of my comfort
Interesting.
zone.
Right.
I need to do
Interesting.
this to myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I made the leap, and it took me, I think, 9 months of relative introversion and writing half a book to come face to face with the fact that I am not I've never really loved writing fiction. I've always been more of a true storyteller,
Mm-hmm.
um, essay writer. And I did not like the process of writing a book. I was like, this is very lonely. I'm a hyper
Mm.
extrovert. So this is like not fun
Mm-hmm.
for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really know where the plot is going.
Uh-huh.
Where is the plot even going? And it was very
Mm-hmm.
meta
Mm-hmm.
when I
Mm-hmm.
had that awareness. Like, but
Yeah.
what is the narrator going to do with the adventure of her life? Right. Like it was really like genuinely that question in the book and in me.
Yeah.
And so I decided to start a business
Mm-hmm.
finally, to just admit it quietly.
Yeah.
And my very first job was with someone who I met here in Charlottesville at the
Mm-hmm.
gym.
Oh,
Because
okay.
if you
Yeah.
go out into your community
Mm-hmm.
and you
Mm-hmm.
strike up conversations, this
You'll.
wellspring of support appears
Mm,
for the work
yeah.
that you want to do.
Yeah.
And I think it would have
Yeah.
been easy to just sort of build a website and then like hide
Mm-hmm.
and never tell anyone about it.
Right.
But even that was like, that was just the start of, um, that was the start of me getting paid work.
Mm-hmm.
And then I, so I connected more and more with people in Charlottesville. And I think this is a very friendly, very like creatively and entrepreneurially friendly community.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt very welcomed and supported. And then I started connecting more with online communities.
Mm-hmm.
And um, especially in Facebook groups, I feel like there are so many real people hanging
Mm-hmm.
out in Facebook groups that you can not only feel supported and enriched by, but like there's just a lot of support to be gained. And I think especially in pandemic times, it's helpful to remember
Mm-hmm.
that those in-person connections, those virtual connections can be just as nourishing and nurturing as they can sometimes feel. Like I know a lot of people have a hard time with social media, which I totally understand.
Mm-hmm.
I think if rather than as a bystander, you can find your people, like
Mm-hmm.
your people are all over the world. And that's part of the
Mm-hmm.
magic of all of this, right? That like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
met in a Facebook group.
Totally. I know.
We
Absolutely.
didn't
And we're
meet
in the
here.
same town, right? Absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And so community was tremendously fun for me because suddenly I saw, in terms of career development, like it allowed me to see the kind of people I wanted to work with. It's
Mm-hmm.
just that not all of them were in Charlottesville. It was like, oh, wait a second. Like I really like working with
Yeah.
women who have built a company of
Yeah.
like this is what I want to do. And so I had that growing experience. But the other piece of community that was really meaningful to me, when I joined my first coaching group,
Mm-hmm.
that was really powerful,
Mm.
because it was the first time I had really received support with mindset work. And up until then, I just sort of thought, okay, like you're just afraid all the time. Like that's
Mm.
life as an entrepreneur, I guess. It
Mm.
doesn't have to be. You can
Mm.
actually get help and ask for
Mm.
help.
Yeah. Totally. Totally.
So
Yeah.
it felt great because I could talk to other people going through the process and I could receive coaching support.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then when I hired my first private coach,
Mm-hmm.
that was a tremendous, for me, opened up so many things for me because it was the first time I invested in myself in a way that was a commitment to, it was like a commitment to myself through my connection to someone else in
Mm-hmm.
a really, just like a very intimate but supportive way. it's hard to even explain like the magic of it for me, except to say, I think that was when I really came to understand this is not a journey that I was meant to take alone,
Mm-hmm.
or really that any of us are meant to take alone.
Mm-hmm.
And having someone who would so closely be able to mirror me, like was
Mm-hmm.
showing up for me.
Right.
Am I my genius? Like my gifts? Like what?
Yeah.
Like I thought I had to
Mm-hmm.
be this rah champion for myself and a lone wolf. So either that kind of like, like a not car salesman, because I never was comfortable with that, but like I had to either be trumpeting myself through a megaphone
Mm-hmm.
or like solely individually, or I had to be um like in my times of emotional vulnerability or my triggering or whatever, that like I had to sort of like lick my wounds in private. And
Mm.
neither of those things were true. Again,
Mm-hmm.
like when I just allowed myself to receive the support of other people who were committed to me, um, it was huge. And
Yeah.
so ever since then, and I've been a part of many masterminds, and I still am. I host women's circles, and I've participated in women's circles. Um, Going to workshops and conferences, like all of these ways to be a receiver of the power of community, and the just like nurturing is the word that comes to mind, because I think that's always what I've needed as someone who's critical, self-critical.
Mm-hmm.
Like we often
Mm-hmm.
just need someone else to nurture us. And then well, sometimes we really need someone to just be like, hey, look, what you're doing is not of service to you or your
Right.
goals. Like,
Right.
don't keep wallowing, because
Mm-hmm.
now we've entered the world of like wallowing. And
Mm-hmm.
so you're selling yourself way too short with this
Mm-hmm.
thought, with this action, whatever.
Right.
That sort of loving, I've heard people refer to community and individual coaching and support as sort of like, not exclusively, this isn't the only way to do it,
Mm-hmm.
but like what would a loving mother
What a great
do?
image. Yeah, totally.
Right.
I
And
love
it's
that.
like,
Yeah.
and I mean, please, like not to be like your service provider to your mother, like we all know
Right.
that's not what I mean,
Right.
but to have someone who is, and they don't have that kind of, there's no power over, there shouldn't be, in my opinion. If there is, like, that's something to work through and let go of, because we all have agency and power over ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But to have someone who will be all in both like nurturing and like, yes, you are so much bigger and brighter than you're giving yourself permission for, and also like, no, we're going to put a limit on that, because
Yeah.
you're going to keep beating your head against that wall if I don't point out that you're beating your head against the wall and help you turn yourself to do something else. Like there's that kind of gentle that gentle support and guidance, I think, can be
Love
really
that.
helpful.
I love that. And so many, I mean, just beautiful themes there. The importance of connection and
Mm-hmm.
learning in community,
Yes.
giving support but finding support. It sounds like,
Yes.
and what that that space can hold for people. To now, I love the phrases that you used, Elizabeth. Not only the lone wolf. And the cheerleader, rah, 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 but somebody else who's helping to hold that space for you. So, just a gorgeous thing to provide for other people. And I think that many people, many women, many entrepreneurs, maybe many people don't know what that feels like, to feel
Yeah.
supported, to feel
Yeah.
held, to know that you don't have to go it alone. And I think that like that's the beauty of therapy, that's the beauty of coaching, that's the beauty of online groups is finding community, and it takes that stepping
Yes.
out of your comfort zone a little bit sometimes to find that. But it's like anything that we often have to go through a struggle to find our strength or to find reward or more joy, and it can be so rewarding. So beautifully
Absolutely.
said. So I'd love to dive into your everyday a little bit, Elizabeth, in
Mhm.
terms of some of the touch points for you. I'd love to hear what brings you joy.
Mm. Well, such a great question. So a few things always. Being in nature,
Mm,
always,
yeah.
hands down. I mean, just I listened to meditation once by a woman named Tosha Silver. Beautiful, beautiful, highly recommend.
Mm-hmm.
And she talked about receiving the energy of any being that you are near in meditation, as a way to strengthen your receiving muscle. And just what if you just allowed yourself to receive all of the energy from the tree that you are near right now? Because of course you're always near trees if
Yeah,
you're me.
right.
And oh my God, so much joy, so much joy. It restores me to this essential feeling of vitality and connection and wonder
Mm-hmm.
in life, that like we get to do this, that
Mm-hmm.
we're the one in whatever billion, like it's astronomically infinite, insane that we're here. And we're connected to the spirit of all things. I consider myself very spiritual, not religious. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, meditation is really useful. I love working with oracle cards, given that I have this big background in writing and storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
I find that working with images and words and archetypes can just be this beautiful mirror for communing with your spiritual self, your spirit, the world around you, whatever you want. Like take what you want from that, but you can pull a card spread and make it mean anything that will be of service to you. And if you like that kind of imagining a conversation with the universe or whatever speaks to you, like it's a really fun way to do it for me anyway. I like love that. I have, this is like, no, I didn't want to leave with this because I know this won't be true for everyone, but I have a 7-month-old who is just a joy, just a joy, a joy, a joy when he's mad, a joy when he's sad, a joy when he's happy. I like can't believe it. Like he did this. Like, how did he come? I'm so glad he's here.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
He's
I'm
so
so glad
fun.
it's
Like
here. I love that.
I
Yes,
know, like what?
totally. Yeah.
Oh my God, he's just so cool.
That's
And
awesome.
I want to, the one thing I do want to say too is, and of course, I have a cat that I
Yeah.
adore. I have a husband who makes my life better every day in every way. And I am so blessed. I have a mother and a sister that mean the world to me, and many family members who've passed that I still feel a connection with. And I'm grateful for that. And, and like laughing, like I'm one of the things my husband and I really enjoy is that we just like make each other laugh all the time. And I think if you have that source in your life, it's incredible. And the only thing I want to say, just to add to this joy thing, is if you do have kids, I know you have kids, but anyone who has kids, like if you connect at all or relate to this feeling I have when I talk about my son, if you could imagine for a moment that you are that precious and that you are that like hilariously, miraculously, like this little spirit having this human experience, and people are so glad you are here. Like the world is so glad you are here. Like you are making things better all the time, just no matter how sad or mad you are, no matter how laughy you are, although you're super cute when you're laughing, like I just think there's something very precious about being a mom that we can like draw from that for ourselves too.
That's so beautiful. I love that. You are so precious. And we don't, tell ourselves that probably often enough. So I love that. And I love hearing what brings people joy, because the more I think we're mindful of it, the more we can cultivate it too in our lives.
Totally.
So as we get ready to wrap up soon, I'd love to roll through some quick roller questions and hear your thoughts. Elizabeth, so joy and the struggle. What keeps you moving forward on the days you struggle?
I am wholly committed to the vision that I have for myself in my, especially in my career, like the professional, what I want to do with my work in the world. Totally committed to it.
Love that. Clarity right there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Yeah. And what makes you excited at the same time about what's happening in your community, in your household, or the broader community?
Wow. I think especially as a new mom, I have been like, we've been extremely isolated because of COVID. We lost someone to COVID early on, and it's been very like, we've just made choices to like basically not engage. We never go out. And despite having this extremely isolated pregnancy and then birth and now having a child, I have never felt more wrapped up in community and love and support. And I think community never fails to surprise me with its generosity and open-heartedness. And, you know, you said before, sometimes people feel uncomfortable putting themselves out there. Like, you get paid back 100,000 times every time you put a drop into community, like no question.
Yeah, I love that. We often don't know what we're going to get back, because if we just give it, you know, without the expecting anything in return, it often does absolutely come back so multifold. So you've shared so much goodness about wisdom, about your own growth, about how you've engaged. What key lessons learned would you share with others who are trying to create change in their business, in their lives, in their community?
I think it is important to know what inspires you, what the vision is for what you want to create, and to, it probably is going to come with a side of fear. Just know that just because you're afraid of it doesn't mean it isn't for you. It just means there's a part of you that's thinking bigger than your monkey mind that wants to keep you safe.
Right.
And if, you know, and if it lights you up, then it's for you. Like, go get the tattoo, go start the business. And I will say too, like, little steps matter a lot. So that's something I teach a lot, is like, just take the brave baby step. Take the step that's just a little bit outside your comfort zone. You don't have to quit your job. I did, but you don't have to. Like, not necessary. Do something that creates a ripple of joy in you. And while you're at it, give yourself a lot of support. The internal support with the mindset and hard work, but also the external support with your community.
I love that. Oh, so beautifully said. Love that. What do you wish someone told you, Elizabeth, 5 or 10 years ago about the work, in any direction you take that work?
That if ever a time comes that you feel it has to be done a certain way, you can work your thoughts and change your mind and open up a whole vista of creative potential where you can do it your way and succeed.
I love that. I love that. Just expanding the view, creating something
new.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I love that so much. Is there anything else, before I'll ask you in just a moment how folks can learn more about you, is there anything else you'd like to share with folks today? Any other thoughts or reflections?
If you, like me, want to be a force for good in the world and you worry that you don't give enough, try on the idea that you give a lot just by showing up and sharing your heart in the ways you already do it. And you may find that from that place of enoughness, you have more energy and more joy, and you give more naturally without a feeling of like ick and I'm terrible and I should. And that can really change a lot.
That's, gorgeous right there. So Elizabeth, how can people find more about you and your work? Tell us how we can connect with you.
Come connect with me. I have a website, which is elizabethhopederby.com. Awesome. And I am also on Instagram at Elizabeth Derby. So come hang out. I would love to connect.
Awesome. So we'll include those links in the show notes today, and folks can find the links on the episode webpage as well. So Elizabeth, it's been such a delight to talk with you today. Your wisdom and joy and starting small and showing up. So really beautiful. Thank you for joining the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.